Welcome once again to our online church family gathering. I think if I'm right, this is like the 19th week that we're doing it. And I was thinking this last week, how grateful I am for the technology that we have that allows us to be together by video and kind of feels like real time. That's a real gift. You know, if you roll back 100 years, the experience that we're having right now is very similar to what happened within our country 100 years ago. It was another pandemic. It was the Spanish flu. Tragically, there were about 675,000 or so Americans that lost their life over the span of about 2 years, 1918 to 1920. And shockingly, almost 50 million people around the world died from that. And the church was kind of caught up in that, just like we are today. And they had to respond to the reality that large gatherings, like churches gather in, are environments that are really susceptible to the spread of the kind of viruses that we're talking 100 years ago as well as today. We all know that. What's interesting is we think that we're the first generation that has had the church building and campuses closed down, but that's not the case. The same thing happened like 100 years ago. Here's a headline from a newspaper in Birmingham, Alabama, that introduces the idea that churches are going to have to be closed down. It says this is their headline: "Churchless Day is planned here. Epidemic of influenza causes ban on all houses of worship." A reality. And so churches weren't able to have their doors open from kind of May to October of that year. But churches were innovative, and they found ways to care for and love the church family and get biblical content into their lives. And one of the ways they did it is they printed out sermons and mailed them to members of their church family. They put packages of resources and so on together for parents and kids so that they could have a Bible lesson through the week. It kind of sounds like what we're doing. Now, they didn't have any of the electronic media like we have. There were no TVs or no Zoom, no internet, that kind of thing. And so, again, they were innovative. One of the things they did, I noticed that a number of newspapers would record or copy the sermons for the week and put it in the newspaper and distribute their newspapers. Innovative. I don't think that would happen in our day, but that's what they did. And churches just found a way to thrive through that experience, just like churches are finding a way to do that now. I saw a newspaper clipping from a church organization. They have a number of churches across the nation at that time, and this is what they wrote to their churches, is just a way to encourage them. Here's what it says: "Our people desire to be helpful in every possible way as churches were mandated to close their doors. So, of course, we will respect the requests and suggestions of the health authorities. But while closing of public places is in vogue, surely we can have worship in our own homes. There we can read God's word, pray, sing praises, and give thanks. If all the Christian people would ask God for the passing of this scourge, they would surely bring God's blessing upon the land, for the scourge would pass. In that way, we would surely be a blessing to the earth. Then again, would this not be a splendid time to rebuild those family altars?" And it finishes this way: "So rebuild, brothers and sisters, rebuild. Is not this the time to rebuild?" The church is in great shape during this time. It really is. It may feel disappointing that we're not together, but this is not our church. It is Jesus's. He belongs to him. And church history teaches us anything, that the most potent, thriving times for the church are the most unlikely times. It is when things are difficult, and there's chaos in the land, and fear is rampant, and the church rises up as a beacon of hope and delight and joy. This is not the end of the world. If you look back 100 years ago when the church went through something similar, the church actually thrived and grew and became even more potent than it was beforehand, and we can expect the same thing. And so I wanted to take a few minutes and give a little context to encourage you. We're okay. We're perfectly safe with Jesus. We'll find our way through it, and we will thrive on the other side of it. We will for sure. Okay, enough of that. Let me go on to the next series, next installment that we have been thinking about together these last weeks, under the title of All You Need Is Love. If you're just joining in for the first time, or maybe you're getting back from summer vacation, the title, All You Need Is Love, you might think this is a study of Beatles' greatest hit. It's not. It's actually one of the most significant, well-known, and misunderstood passages of Scripture in all of the Bible. What we've been thinking together is we've been thinking together about parts of an ancient letter. It's almost 2,000 years old, but it's written by one of the most significant church leaders of all time, a guy by the name of Paul. And in this letter, you can find it in your Bible. It's under the title 1 Corinthians, and we've been looking specifically at chapter 13. It's one of possibly 4 letters that Paul writes to some friends at a church that he started in the city of Corinth while he lived there. And I think you could probably summarize this whole letter. We've done it this way every week since week 1. You could summarize it this way, where he's talking about the nature of how the church is functioning. It has some problems. It's messed up in some areas, and he's concerned about it. And then he points to the answer to it is love, God's unique, special love for them, not just as a church, but individually. And he takes this kind of large segment of the letter, and you could summarize the whole thing this way with these 3 short words: everything minus love is nothing. As if Paul would say, you can know everything, have everything, you can be smarter than anybody else, you can be the best looking, most influential, you can have it all together, the most together person evidently in the whole room, having everything. But if the operating system of your life is not love, the divine love of God coursing through your system and affecting every way that you act and think and approach life, you're going to end up at the end of the life as nothing. You're going to be disappointed and unfulfilled, and that's just unthinkable for Paul. These are his friends. And so he points them to the source of the full and fulfilled life, and he says it's love. That's what it is. So how then are we going to have this love? Well, Paul's good friend John writes something so profound and wonderful where he says God is love. And then he takes us through kind of a logic path where he says, look, I just really hope that all of you get to know God's love. Every human being should. How wide, how long, how high, how deep, how broad, how all-encompassing the love of God is. And here's what his bet is, and was Jesus' bet too, that if you know God, if you really know him, you are going to experience his love. That's how you experience it, by knowing him. And when you experience it, though you'll never fully know and be able to experience the fullness of it, but when you do, it is going to be so transformative and amazing in your life that you are going to find the full and complete life in Jesus Christ. So here's the deal then. Don't try to build that kind of love. Here's what you try to, what we do is we get to know God. That's what we do. And then we see this happen in our lives. And it's as if to compel us or attract us to actually think that you can live this kind of love and what it looks like in our own lives. Paul then goes to a place in 1 Corinthians 13 where he begins to describe what God's love for us is like. It's not a list of love or, how to achieve love or how to aspire to it. It's just a description of God's amazing love for us. And this is how he describes it. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-6, he says, love is, or God is, patient and kind. God is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. God does not demand his own way. God is not irritable. He keeps no record of being wronged, especially not to leverage that in some way in our lives. God does not rejoice about injustice or failure, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. And then, as if Paul is climbing this great mountain, he gets to the top of the mountain and to the climax of all that he wants to tell us about God's amazing love. And he gives us 4 qualities of God's love that are absolutely amazing. They're stunning if you stop and think about them. This is how he describes it. Love is something that never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. I really like the way the New International Version says it. It says it so simply and succinctly. It's to be easy to memorize if you wanted to do that. This is what it says. Love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And if you were to read what Paul says from the BIV version, that's the Brad International version, I would say it's something like this. Love, that is God, always has your back, always believes the best of you, always expects the best of you the next time, and always stays behind to be with you. So let's just think about those for just a bit. The first one, love always protects, or the way I would say it, God always has your back. He always looks out for you. He backs us up. He gives us the best possible advice whenever we ask. He supports us and or corrects us in whatever choices and decisions that we make. God always protects us, has our back, and he walks with us through harm in this world and from harmful people. He has our back. He sticks up for us whenever people talk badly about us. He has our back. And here's the thing. When someone sticks up for you or has your back in a tough situation, you don't forget that easily. When I was in my senior year of high school, kind of the last semester of my senior year, I got called to the principal's office toward the end of the day, and that wasn't an odd occasion for me. And I was certain, I get the call, I'm pretty sure I'm about to get an academic award, athlete award, something like that, right? So I get to the principal's office, and there he is waiting for me, and certainly this is not an academic or athletic award. That when the principal's waiting for you, that's never a good thing. He invites me into his office and asks me to sit down, and that's never a good thing either. And then it got like worse. He turns to me and he says, I need you to do something at the end of school today. I need you to go down to the local police station and ask for Officer Onifray. Now, you don't get asked to go to the police station for any good reason as a high school senior. So I'm sure I'm in some kind of deep trouble, right? Well, as it turned out, there was something going on around our campus that the principal and the police needed my help with. Evidently, somebody had been stealing from the boys' locker room, taking money and so on from people's backpacks and their pants and so on. While the practices were going on, volleyball, basketball, whatever it was, somebody would go in and take this stuff, and they could never find out who it was. And so the principal was asking me to help with that. So after school, I head down to the police precinct, and I ask for Officer Onifray, and he tells me what he wants me to do. He hands me a wallet, and he says, don't open it, because inside is cash and an ink pad that will kind of explode if you open it up and you touch the cash. And so here's what we want you to do. We want you to take that wallet, put it in the back pocket of your pants, hang your pants on the hook as you go for your practice and whatnot, and let's see if someone takes it, because we'll be able to track it. You can't wash that ink out of your hands and gets on everything, and we'll be able to track the person down. I thought, well, that's great. I'd love to help out. It'd be an adventure to do something like this. I'd be happy to help out. And then it dawns on me, this could go really bad, because everybody's going to know if someone takes it and the ink explodes in their hands. They're going to know whose pants those came from, and they're going to be able to identify. And if somebody gets caught as a result of me helping out, friends are going to come get me. You're going to get even. I could die. So I'm concerned about it. And so I tell Officer Onifray that, and he says, don't worry about it. I've got your back. I've got your back. I will be on campus in my cruiser, and if somebody does something, I'm just a radio call away, and the principal is going to be just outside the locker room, and if something goes down, it'll be that we've got your back. Don't worry about it. I still was a little nervous, but that was enough just to know that somebody had my back. That was enough for me to go forward to do this, and so I did it. Now, I wish I could tell you that it turned out in some adventurous way, that somebody got caught and got sent away for life or whatever it would be, but nothing happened. 5 days we did this. Nobody took the wallet. I brought it back one Friday, and that was it. But the point of the whole story is this. I didn't have courage and I didn't have boldness till I knew that somebody had my back, and that was enough for me to do this. See, that's the nature of God having our back. When we know that, there's a boldness and there's a courage that goes from us. And God loves us and he has our back. But here's what it also means, that he doesn't just blindly go with whatever it is that we want to do. Regardless of what we choose to do, he just says, I've got your back. No, not at all. He loves us too much for that. You see, part of someone who loves us and has our back, it's someone who will tell us the direct truth in a loving way if we're going down a perilous path or an ill-advised direction. They're willing to disappoint us. They're willing to frustrate us if necessary. They'll do everything they can to correct us and redirect us. That's what having our back means as well. And this is what love is like. And Paul says God has our back. There's a second thing he says. He says love always trusts. I would say it this way. God always believes the best about you and me. Here's the deal. In recent months, we've all been kind of a human experiment of some kind in real life, real time around this kind of idea. The idea of, do we really have enough love? Is the love strength high enough in us for each other to always believe the best of each other? Try this, and some of us have. Jump on your favorite social media site and state your opinion about something controversial. Like, state your opinion about the validity or not validity of the medical data around COVID-19. State it boldly and see what happens. State your opinion on social media about your advocacy for Black Lives Matter movement and see what happens. Or you might want to state your concern for the way that police have been unfairly lumped into the I can't trust you category and see what happens. Or maybe it's this, the necessity for everyone to wear a mask, or masks are foolish, or you don't have to, or everybody should. Put that out on social media and just stand back and watch what happens in terms of opposing opinions. Regardless of which view you take on these hot button subjects, you're going to have people jump to some very ominous conclusions about you and your character and who you are and everything else about you. They will believe the worst of you, and they will tell you in the most direct and graphic ways. That is, of course, unless they love you. Then, if that's the case, although they may strongly disagree with your views and opinions, and they might even express that to you, they will start from the point of view of assuming that you really are a good person, that you are not the same as your opinion and your view. They'll be interested to hear how you arrived at your view, how you came to that, what the factors are that formed your opinion. They will be more interested in you as a person than you as an opinion. That's the nature of love. So let me ask, does God agree with everything you think and say and do? I think possibly not. But regardless of how off course we may be from the one who knows all truth, he always believes the best of us as people. That's the nature of his love for us. So again, if you think what Paul is talking about is some kind of romantic, frilly, kind of soft love, it is not that at all. This is a bold, courageous, humble kind of love. It's the kind of love that says this: in spite of profoundly disagreeing with you, your view and your actions, I still assume and believe the very best of you. I'm for you, even if I'm not for your view and your action. I think about this sometime. I think I've said it before, that one of the questions I look forward to asking Jesus when I see him face to face is this: why did you keep Judas with you? Why did you do that? You knew what he was going to do. You knew he was dipping into the till. You knew what he had up, what his scheme was going to be. You knew how it was going to end. I wonder if Jesus will respond this way: but I believed the best of him all the way to the end. I thought maybe, just maybe, my love for him would turn it around for him, because I believed the best of him, even knowing what he would do, because who he was not exactly the same of what it did. And I loved him for who he was. Love always trusts, believes the best in us. Thirdly, Paul says this: love always hopes. I would say it this way: God always expects the best of you the next time. Look, you and I mess stuff up, like really mess stuff up sometimes. In truth, there are things in our lives that we're chronically and acutely messing up repeatedly over and again. So what does a God who always hopes think of that? What does he do with it? Well, the Greek word that Paul uses here for hope is a word that means something like this. It's the kind of hope that has confidence that given the same situation that you messed up this time, if you had a chance to do it over again, I just believe you would do it correctly next time. I have that kind of hope. I expect the best of you, and I expect that you'll do it right the next time. I just believe you'll do that. That means our failures and mess-ups don't define us in God's eyes, nor does he ignore them, by the way. And here's the thing, the wonderful thing. If we bring them to him and we bring them into our mess and we confess and we're truthful and we're upfront about it, he will help us walk through the next time that situation comes about. And he has great hope because he's on the scene that it's going to go much differently this time. He has confidence that we'll handle the whole deal differently. This is the nature of his love. Love always hopes. God always expects the best of you and me next time. And lastly, love always perseveres. God always stays behind with you, is how I might say it. This, of course, flies in the face of a very popular cultural movement called canceling. You've heard of it probably. We live in a cancel culture. A cancel culture refers to the popular practice of withdrawing support of somebody or an organization or a magazine or a media outlet or whoever it is because we disagree with them, because we don't like them, because they've done something to us, and so we just cancel them. To cancel someone means that they're nullified or they're ended or they're voided, they're done, they're no longer wanted. We do that with all kinds of people, and we do it in all kinds of situations, and here's the thing. God never cancels you and me. He just wouldn't do that. In recent months, given the tension and stress around COVID and the protests and delayed church regatherings and wearing of masks and not wearing masks and so on, there's been a lot of canceling going on. Some of us might have canceled somebody at work because we just see things so differently and I just don't want to deal with you. It might even be a family member. I was so saddened to hear just this last week of a 30-year friendship that got canceled because of a single Facebook post. That's not the nature of love. That's not the nature of it. It's not how it works. To break off long-standing friendships, to drop out of life groups, to move to another church that suits a person's political views or other means that leads to canceling is just inconsistent with one who's been touched by a God who would never cancel them. That is not an accurate representation of the love of God has. Imagine this. Imagine if God canceled us each time we held a view or acted in a way that he was not fond of. Frankly, we'd all be canceled permanently. Instead, God sees who we are and what we're about, and rather than start the whole deal over again by wiping the whole human race out, he comes to the people who canceled him on a cross. He dies on a cross so that those who canceled him can be uncanceled. It's amazing. And his bet is that if we realize what it cost and the love that it took to undo our canceling, we would never, ever cancel anyone else in our lives, ever. We just wouldn't do it. So we need to know what it means to be loved in such a way that he never leaves us behind. Never. He stays with us. I think of what John, his friend, writes to describe Jesus' love and how it works. In John 13:1, John writes, Jesus, having loved his own in this world, now loved them all the way to the end, knowing the whole bunch of them would betray him and walk away from him and leave him alone. He wouldn't cancel them. He wouldn't do that. As I came here today to videotape this for our weekend family gathering, I thought of a movie that came out, I think it's 5 or 6 years ago, something like that, maybe more. It's called Hacksaw Ridge. And it centers around a character by the name of Desmond Doss. Desmond Doss is a U.S. soldier in the Pacific Theater toward the end of World War II. He's a pacifist by persuasion and conviction and a medic. And his role is to care for wounded soldiers. Hacksaw Ridge, the movie, the cliff that the movie's named after, is this 150-foot or so sheer drop down to the ground. And there's a rope ladder that the soldiers climb up to the top to engage the Japanese. And they have a very successful day. And then the next day, the Japanese regroup and they overrun the American army, and the American army has to flee down Hacksaw Ridge to the bottom. But there are a number of soldiers that are trapped. Among them is Desmond Doss. And as he makes his way toward the ridge and down the rope ladder, he hears the cries of dying soldiers, and he can't leave them behind. So he runs back into the fray and grabs a soldier, puts him on his shoulders, and makes his way to the edge of the cliff, and then belays him down the face of this 150-foot cliff. And as he gets him to the bottom, he prays, God, give me another one. And he runs back in and he rescues another. In the end, by the end of the day, he's rescued 75 soldiers, near death himself. It's an amazing story of not leaving someone behind, of saying, I won't leave you there. I won't cancel you. I will go to you. I'll stay with you. And this is the nature of God's love for us. But tragically, not everybody experiences this kind of love. They don't even know that they could have this kind of love. Why would that be? Well, some people have never heard of it. And we oftentimes think of them some distant place away from us, but they live right next to us. We work next to them. Some of them are in our family, and they've actually never heard the good news of Jesus and what the nature of his love for us is. And so how can they ever be taken up by it if they've never heard it? But what's more common than not? They've heard about it. They've just never seen a real model of it. They've never seen the effects of someone who understands and knows Jesus and knows what he's done and are taken up by his love. And they just live it out. They become the expression of Jesus' love in the world. And many people have just heard about it, but that's you and me. We're the ones that have been impacted by this love. We're the ones that have been transformed and changed. We're the ones that have been overrun by his love. And now it's become our operating system. It's what we live out of every day. And we're actually meant to be mistaken for Jesus and his love in this world, to not just talk about it, yes, but to actually live it out in such a way that people would say, when I think about Jesus and I think the best of Jesus, I think of you and the way that you love, because you always seem to think the best of me. Even when we disagree, you just somehow think the best of me. I'm amazed at times that when we do agree, that you don't write me out of the relationship and you don't cancel me, and you hang in there with me throughout. You never leave me behind. It looks like, well, you got a level of patience and you got a level of kindness, and that's just, when I think of Jesus, I think he might be like that. It's up to us. So how would this love take over our lives? I said earlier, you're not going to get it by trying to be more loving. It's not a try-hard thing. Here's what it is. It's getting to know Jesus. It's getting to know him as a friend and a companion, someone who does life with us all the time, who loves us that way and doesn't leave us behind and thinks the best of us, and sure, we're going to do it right the next time. And when we live in that long enough, and it's a real, genuine friendship with him, it begins to overtake us, and we increasingly think like him. And lo and behold, we increasingly love like him and are mistaken for him. So pursue him. Spend time with him. Carve out time in your day to just be with him alone. Do every minute with him and watch what he does. Let his love saturate your life, and let it now be reflected through your life. Jesus, might you help us with this? May we be those kinds of people who simply know you, walk in your direction, and spend time with you, and do a real relationship with you, and let the wonder of who you are absolutely infiltrate our minds and our hearts and our souls, and let us love because we are filled with your love and we understand it and grow in it. Make us models and examples, not just words, of someone who loves because they've first been loved by you. And we'll be grateful if you do it, and it would all be for your fame and for your reputation. And to this end, we thank you now, Jesus. Amen.